What up, you guys? Back at it with another video. I'm actually on the Versys for once. I never ride this bike anymore, but I love it. Still, hands down, I think the best motorcycle money can buy, unless you're trying to like really ball out of control. If you're trying to be budget minded, you're trying to get a good daily commuter, good fun weekend bike, the Versys 650 is untouchable, dude. I love this thing. But on today's video, we're going to talk about a few things I do not love about the Versys 650. Every bike has its quirk, every bike has its little issues, and we're going to talk about the things that I think could be better from the factory on the Kawasaki Versys 650. And obviously, you got to pay very close attention to the fact that I said from the factory, because a lot of the things are already fixed on my copy of the bike. For one, the very first thing I think the Kawasaki Versys really needs, it's not fixed on my bike, but a center stand. The bike would be really nice to have a center stand. If you're going to be doing ADV shit, you're going to be parking in the dirt and whatnot, you just want to get it nice and stable every now and again. I think a center stand would work really good wonders. This guy, B Sweetness, needs to drive his or her Camry. I don't think a center stand is as important for like servicing as people make it out to be. Like, I've done many oil changes on this bike with just the side stand. It's totally doable. As long as you stand it up to look at the sight glass, you are good. You do not need a center stand to do your oil. You do not need a center stand to do your chain maintenance. You can totally do chain maintenance with the side stand. I do it every 500 miles. It's fine. It's just a little different. But yes, it would be easier with the center stand, but it's not necessarily required. It would just be a nice perk that I think they could have included from the factory or made it easier to add in the aftermarket. And number two, the second thing I think the Kawasaki Versys could have done a little better is the front suspension. Honestly, it's very soft. It's very soft, doesn't have a ton of travel. I think just adding like just beefing that up a little bit, giving you a little bit more suspension travel, this thing could have been a really great off-roader. What is Chad saying? Apparently my turn signal was on. I'm with Chad today. He's got that Duke 690 now, and now he's just out here wrapping around with his little thumper. But yeah, the front suspension on the Versys 650 could use some work. It needed to be a little stiffer from the factory. It needed a little bit more travel. Again, that's a thing that I didn't change, but I think it would have been really nice if they could have changed that and made that better. Where you going, Chad? Where you going, brother? Where you going? Again, I've gone off-road on this bike a lot. I've gone on all kinds of trails. You guys have seen it. I've done a lot of stuff on this motorcycle. Obviously, the front suspension is good enough, but it could have been better. Number three, the third thing that I think the Kawasaki Versys could do a little better from the factory is the skid plate. They give you the little plastic guard of a cover from the factory, and it's just not enough. It's nothing. It covers it visually covers your like underbelly and your oil filter, but it doesn't actually add any protection. The first time I banged mine, I cracked it. I've heard of people using theirs successfully, like it actually protecting them from things, but mine did not. I replaced it instantly with the SW Motec skid plate, and that one is fabulous. I absolutely love it. It's a mandatory modification. You need that if you're going to be adventure riding this bike. You need that protection. The SW Motec one is really great, super easy to install, even though they don't really give you the best of instructions. What you talking about? Can't hear each other. The skid plate is really great. As I'm like hooning out with my friends, you need that. Get you one. I wish Kawasaki would have included one from the factory. Not even like the best of one, but if they included just like a piece of metal on there, like a lot of bikes include like a little aluminum one out the factory. It could have been thin. It could have been something better than plastic. Come on, Kawasaki. So again, that's the number three thing I don't like about the Kawasaki Versys in its stock form is the skid plate. You gotta change it. You have to, no doubt about it. All right, number four thing the Kawasaki Versys absolutely got all wrong from the factory is the seat. The seat on this motorcycle from Kawasaki is awful. Not only is it paper thin and hard, it slopes you forward so it just crushes your genitals into the tank. If you have genitals to crush, if your genitals are of the non-crushing variety, it'll still be uncomfortable. They just got the seat all wrong. I hate the shape of it. I hate the feel of it. It has to go. I went with the Sargent World Tourer seat, I believe it's called. $500 seat. I see it on sale now for like $350, which is closer to being okay. Still a lot of money, but it's pretty good. It lowered the bike about an inch, so you get like a nice like flat foot if you're inseam challenged like myself. I'm not the shortest guy ever, but I appreciate being able to get closer to the ground as far as my legs go, you know. It also flattens that out a lot. Your seat is overall flatter and just easier. Woo! Almost missed the turn. It's overall flatter, so it just gives you a more stable surface. It doesn't give you those hot spots in the corner of your legs like the stock seat did. It's just way more comfortable. I've done a 600-mile day in this seat without issue. After about like that point, like the 500-600 mile mark, it definitely starts to get like a little uncomfortable, but I think most seats are going to do that, with the exception of like road sofa type stuff, you know what I mean? So with that being said, I think first mod, honestly, just go ahead and get you a new seat if you're going to be doing some long distance. The factory seat will not work. Get it out of there. All right, the fifth and final thing I did not like about the Kawasaki Versys from the factory is the exhaust. The exhaust is really heavy, like most factory exhausts, but that's not the thing I hate about it. The thing I hate about it is the sound, or lack thereof. The exhaust was so quiet that it was honestly dangerous. You just had to like this little hum from it. I felt myself getting cut off way more than I was used to on a motorcycle, just people not hearing me, not really paying attention to me. Even though it's a bright green bike that's pretty tall off the ground, people would still just not know I was there. And the second I switched to the Two Brothers exhaust, I believe I have the M4 if you want to grab it, it was way better. People, like, commands attention. People don't ignore me. They don't try to run me off the road. They don't try to merge into me. I know, like, the debate of loud pipes saving lives, whether or not that's like a thing or not, is always up for debate. But I honestly say that, like, it doesn't have to be like obnoxious, like glass pack Harley exhaust or whatever the hell they're making those things out of, just like straight pipe loud. But give yourself some more noise than this bike had from the factory. And while you're at it, go ahead and shed some weight, because this bike has a decent little bit of power. It really does. And if you shed some weight off of it, it really becomes really usable. Woo! You really want to just go ahead and shed that weight, get that better sounding exhaust. It's going to give you a little power bump. Overall, it's just a really good mod that I think you should go ahead and do on your Kawasaki Versys 650. And just for the heads up, for those that might ask later, I do have the 2009. This is the first gen Versys, not the current model Versys. Well, you guys, it was a short list, but it was honestly pretty easy to come up with. You know, I love this bike, but no bike is perfect. The Kawasaki Versys needs some things from the factory. Well, if they don't give them to you from the factory, which they don't, there's like mandatory mods, things you have to change. There are shortcomings on the bike, but overall, for the money, I think the package, what you get, is really great. So even all those things considered, I would still tell you, even if you don't have the budget to change those things right away, you still want to go ahead and grab a Kawasaki Versys. I know this is supposed to be a somewhat negative video about all the things that are wrong with it, but it was way easier to come up with like 15 things I love about this bike than 5 I don't like about it. And keep in mind that I've already changed some of those things. Yes, it gets expensive, but you still come out a lot cheaper than buying a brand new motorcycle if you buy one of these used and throw a bunch of mods at it. I will stand by it that buying one of these for like $3,000 and then putting like $3,000 into it, that $6,000 investment is better than any $6,000 motorcycle you can buy, in my book. You may disagree, you may have some other favorite bike, whatever it is, but I think as a touring, adventure, daily rider bike, this thing is untouchable. And you know, I ride a Bonneville almost every day now, and it's worse, honestly. This bike is better in almost every single way, unless you factor in style, which is completely debatable. Some people think this bike looks better than the Bonneville, a lot of people think the Bonneville looks better, but all of that stuff's debatable. All of it's subjective, you know. If you're into that kind of sporty styling, if you're into that ADV look, untouchable. Go out and get a Kawasaki Versys 650, that first gen. I don't know about that second gen, but maybe I'll cop one of those and just check it out and see how they compare. Maybe that's on the radar for me. Maybe I'll get one of those next. I am planning a new bike. I'm not ready to tell you guys what it is yet, but it is in the works. It is not a Versys, but it's something that I think you guys are going to enjoy. But that is it for this one. If you enjoyed it, please hit thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, I would super appreciate it if you subscribed. The subscription count is going up and it's making my day. We're on that quest to 1,000. Once I hit that, I'm gonna cry like a little girl, a little boy, a child. I don't want to go ahead and add a gender on it. I'm just gonna cry like a child. Y'all have a good day. I appreciate your support. Peace.